The smell of sweat and anticipation hung in the air like a heavy cloud. Zox Kraven, three-time champion of the Galactic Boxing Federation, sat in my preparation chamber, looking at my forearms with disgust. My purple skin glistened under the fluorescent lights as my trainer, Blip, massaged a concoction of healing gel into my upper left shoulder. "You are overthinking again," Blip grunted, his antenna twitching nervously. "I can practically hear your brain cells committing suicide one by one." "Oh, I'm sorry. Should I be underthinking before the most important match of my career?" I snapped back, rolling all six of my eyes simultaneously. Maybe I should just meditate on how wonderfully the High Council will react when I lose to a two-armed human. Blip stepped back, his tiny green form barely reaching my elbow. "For someone with six eyes, you are remarkably blind to the opportunity here. This human, Dax Rogers, he's just meat and bone. You're slightly more evolved meat and bone, with twice the punching power. Thank for the biology lesson," I muttered, standing up to my full 9 feet. "Have you forgotten what happened to Grok Thunderfist, the last alien champion who faced a human?" Blip winced. We all remembered. Grok had been favored 20-1. The fight lasted exactly 58 seconds before the human knocked him unconscious with a right hook that nobody, absolutely nobody, saw coming. The footage went viral across 17 galaxies. "That was different," Blip insisted, though his confidence sounded about as authentic as synthetic protein cubes claiming to taste like actual food that a loud knock on the door interrupted our little pep talk. The door slid open to reveal Commissioner Xylax, his gelatinous form barely contained in what these humans called a business suit. 15 minutes, Champion Kraven," he bubbled, his speech translator making his voice sound oddly formal. "The arena is at maximum capacity. Every screen across 12 systems is tuned in. The betting pools have reached record heights." He paused dramatically, his transparent body pulsing with excitement. "No pressure." I glared at him as he oozed back out the door. "No pressure," I mimicked in a high-pitched voice once the door closed. "Sure, just the fate of alien boxing reputation resting on my shoulders. Just potentially being remembered as the second champion to fall to the human uprising in our sport. Just, will you shut up and put your mouth guard in?" Blip interrupted, shoving the protective equipment toward me. "Save the drama for your autobiography after you win." I took the mouth guard, sneering at him. "Bold of you to assume I will have a career worth writing about after tonight." The corridor to the ring was longest walk in the universe. Literally, the grandest arena on Jupiter's reclaimed moon Europa was designed to maximize the psychological torture of competitors. Each step illuminated beneath my feet, a countdown to potential humiliation. The crowd's roar hit me like a physical force as I emerged from the tunnel. 20,000 spectators, a mix of every sentient species in the galaxy, creating a wall of sound that would liquefy the eardrums of lesser beings. I raised my forearms in my signature stance, triggering a cascade of cheers from my supporters. Then I saw him across the arena. Dax Rogers, the human phenomenon, standing there with his ridiculous 2 arms, wrapped in red boxing gloves that seemed comically oversized for his frame. At 6 feet 4 inches, he was considered tall for a human, but still practically a dwarf compared to me. His skin was a rich brown, head completely bald, with a scar running down the left side of his face. The story was he got it in a bar fight on Mars. How charmingly primitive he caught my gaze and, can you believe this? Winked at me. Winked, like we were about to engage in some friendly game rather than a championship bout that would determine the fate of cross-species athletic dominance. "Look at him, strutting around like he owns the place," I hissed to Blip as we approached the ring. "With his tiny frame and pathetic bilateral symmetry." "Focus, Zox," Blip warned. "His record is 28-0. 23 of those wins were knockouts, against aliens twice his size. Thank you for that completely unnecessary reminder of my impending doom," I replied, climbing through the ropes. "What would I do without your uplifting statistical analyses?" The ring announcer, a Venusian with a voice modified to reach decibels that could shatter glass, floated to the center. "Ladies, gentlemen, and unidentified sentients of all dimensions, welcome to the event of the century." The crowd exploded again. I swear I saw a Neptunian in the front row actually explode from excitement. They do that sometimes. In the blue corner, standing at 9 feet tall, weighing 487 pounds, the reigning, defending, undisputed Galactic Boxing Federation heavyweight champion of the universe. Zox Four-Fisted Fury Kraven. More cheers. I raised my arms again, this time more confidently. This was my domain. My ring. My title. And in the red corner, standing at 6 feet, 4 inches, weighing 245 pounds, the challenger, the undefeated human sensation, the Earth's mightiest champion, Dax the Extinction Event Rogers. The human fans went absolutely berserk. There were fewer of them, but what they lacked in numbers they made up for in volume. Humans always did have impressively robust vocal cords for such fragile creatures that we approached the center of the ring where referee Klong, a cybernetically enhanced former champion from Saturn's rings, waited. His metallic face was expressionless as always. Champions, his synthesized voice crackled. You know the rules. No low blows, no hitting after the bell, no gravitational manipulation devices, no sudden molecular restructuring of your anatomy, and absolutely no telepathic intimidation. He looked pointedly at me with that last one. Hey, I protested. That was one time, and it was an accident. I can't help it if my thoughts are naturally intimidating. Dax Rogers actually laughed. Don't worry, ref, he said in that smooth Earth accent. I left my molecular restructuring device in my other shorts. Was this human making jokes? Before fighting me, touch gloves, Klong instructed that I extended my 4 hands reluctantly. Dax bumped his 2 gloves against my lowest pair, looking up at me with confidence that bordered on insanity. May the best being win, he said. Oh, I intend to, I replied, trying to inject as much menace as possible into my voice. It wasn't hard. Menace is practically my native language. We returned to our corners. Blip gave me a final squirt of electrolyte solution. First round, feel him out, he advised. Don't get cocky just because you have anatomical advantages. Got it. Don't use my superior biology, strength, reach, and evolution to my advantage. Brilliant strategy. The bell rang that I moved to the center of the ring, my 4 arms held in defensive positions. Upper pair high to protect my head, lower pair guarding my torso. Traditional Kruvian boxing stance, perfected over 7 centuries. Dax bounced lightly on his feet, looking absurdly small and vulnerable. I threw a probing jab with my upper right arm, expecting him to back away. Instead, he slipped inside and delivered a hook to my midsection that felt like being hit by a small asteroid. What the? I gasped, instinctively countering with my lower left. He wasn't there anymore. The crowd roared as Dax danced away, still bouncing, still looking relaxed. I felt my face flush a deeper shade of purple. This was not how this was supposed to go. Stop playing with your food and hit him. Blip shouted from the corner. I advanced more aggressively, launching a combination of jabs and crosses from all 4 arms. It was like trying to hit smoke. The human's head movement was unlike anything I'd studied in the footage. He seemed to know where my punches were going before I did. Then suddenly, wham! A straight right connected with my jaw, sending shock waves through my cranial ridge. The arena spun slightly. I backpedaled, trying to clear my head. Is that all you got, champ? Dax called out, actually taunting me now. I thought you were going to show me why 4 arms are better than 2. The crowd laughed. Laughed. At me. My blood boiled. I rushed forward, abandoning strategy in favor of raw power. 4-armed assault, the technique that had flattened my last 7 opponents. Upper right, lower left, lower right. A tornado of purple fists aimed at every inch of the human's body. Somehow, and I still don't understand the physics of this, Dax slipped most of them, blocked others, and then countered with a 3-punch combination that made me taste something metallic. The bell rang, ending round 1 that I collapsed in my corner, breathing hard. What was that? I wheezed as Blip frantically worked on a cut above my 3rd eye. That, Blip said grimly, was you fighting emotionally instead of intelligently. He shoved a breathing apparatus into my mouth, pumping pure oxygen into my lungs. He's baiting you, and you are biting like a hungry Plutonian gulper fish. He's faster than the footage showed, I admitted between breaths. No kidding. Stop trying to knock his head off with every punch. Set traps. Use your reach. Fight smart. The bell rang for round 2 that this time I approached more cautiously, using my superior reach to keep Dax at bay. I jabbed with my upper arms while keeping my lower arms ready to counter. The strategy worked better. I connected with several solid hits, backing the human up against the ropes. The crowd started chanting my name. ZOX, ZOX, ZOX. That's more like it, I thought. Then Dax did something unexpected. Instead of covering up or trying to escape the ropes, he planted his feet and traded punches with me. For every 4 shots I landed, he delivered one that somehow seemed to count for more. Why round 3, my confidence was returning. I had won the second round on the judges' cards, and I was finding my rhythm. My 4 arms were working in synchronized patterns that even Dax's supernatural reflexes couldn't fully avoid. "You're pretty good for a biped," I said during clinch. "Thanks," he replied, not even sounding winded. "You're not bad yourself for someone who needs 4 arms to compete." Before I could respond, he broke the clinch and hit me with an uppercut that nearly lifted me off my feet. The middle rounds became a tactical battle. I'd dominate with volume and reach. Then Dax would explode with combinations that seemed to defy the laws of physics. By round 7, both of us were bleeding, my purple ichor and his red blood sometimes mingling on the canvas. During the break before round 8, Blip looked worried. "You're up on points, but he's not slowing down," he said, applying coagulant to a cut on my cheek. "Humans have this thing called second wind." "What, like they fart during fights?" I asked, trying to catch my breath. "No, you biological disaster. It means they get a surge of energy when they should be tiring. It's some evolutionary thing from when they were being chased by predators." "Great. So now I'm fighting ancient human survival adaptations. Anything else I should know? Does he shoot lasers from his eyes in round 10? Just be careful," Blip warned. "He's looking for the knockout." Round 8 began, and I immediately noticed the change. Dax was pressing forward with renewed vigor, his punches carrying even more weight. One particularly savage right hand sent me stumbling back, ears ringing. "That all you got, 4 arms?" Dax shouted, the crowd going wild at his bravado. "My grandmother hits harder than you, and she's been dead for 20 years. Something snapped inside me. I lunged forward, abandoning defense, all 4 arms throwing haymakers designed to separate the human from his consciousness. That IT was exactly what he wanted. Dax slipped the wild assault and countered with a left hook that connected perfectly with my temple. The arena lights suddenly seemed very bright, then very dim. I felt the canvas rush up to meet me as gravity reasserted its dominance over my massive frame. The referee's counts seemed to come from miles away. 1, 2, 3. I struggled to get my bearings, all 6 eyes trying to focus on a single point. 4, 5, 6. The crowd was a distant roar, like ocean waves pounding against the shore. 7, 8. Somewhere in the fog of my brain, a voice, probably Blip's, was screaming for me to get up, to not become another statistic, to not let the humans claim another victory over a superior species. 9. I forced my 4 arms beneath me and pushed upward, rising just before the final count. Referee Klong looked into my eyes. "Can you continue?" "I was just taking a quick nap," I slurred. "Of course I can continue." Dax was waiting in a neutral corner, not celebrating, just focused. That was perhaps more terrifying than any trash talk could be. The fight resumed, and I was in pure survival mode. My trainer's voice echoed in my head. "Clinch. Move. Don't stand still." I managed to make it to the bell, stumbling back to my corner on wobbly legs. Blip was frantic. What part of "be careful" translated to charge at him like a drug Martian bull? "He insulted my arms," I gasped. "Oh, well, that's a perfectly good reason to risk the championship." Blip's sarcasm could have been registered as a deadly weapon. 2 more rounds. "You are still ahead on points if you don't do anything stupid." "Define stupid," I muttered as the bell rang for round 9 that I spent the 9th round backpedaling, using my reach to keep Dax at bay, landing just enough punches to potentially win the round while avoiding another knockdown. The strategy was working until the final 30 seconds when Dax caught me with a body shot that felt like it rearranged my internal organs. I doubled over, covering up as he unleashed a barrage. Somehow, I survived to the bell. 1 round left. Final round, Blip said, his voice now calm in that way people get when they are beyond panic and into resignation. "You are probably even on the cards now. This round decides everything." I nodded, too exhausted for sarcasm. "Remember who you are." blip continued. You are Zox Kraven, champion of the Galactic Federation. The Four-Fisted Fury. The pride of Caribbean boxing. Champion. I repeated, the word tasting like blood in my mouth. The bell rang for round 10. The final round, yes, I stood up. Something changed. The exhaustion was still there, but beneath it was something else. Something primal. The fighting spirit that had made me champion in the first place, that I met Dax in the center of the ring, and for once, I didn't see an inferior species. I saw a worthy opponent. Let's finish this, I said. He nodded. Best against best. What followed was 3 minutes of the most intense fighting the grandest arena had ever witnessed. We traded punches in the center of the ring, neither of us backing down. For every punch he landed, I returned too. For every combination I threw, he countered with precision. Blood and sweat flew with each impact. The crowd was on its feet, the noise deafening. With 30 seconds left, I caught Dax with a perfect upper right cross that staggered him. For the first time in the fight, he looked vulnerable. I pressed forward, launching a forearmed assault that had him covering up against the ropes. 10 seconds, the timekeeper shouted that I threw everything I had into a final combination. Upper right hook, lower left uppercut, upper left cross, lower right body shot. The last punch landed just as the final bell rang. Dax remained standing, bloody, battered, but upright, that we looked at each other for a moment that seemed to stretch into infinity. Then, to my surprise, he extended his glove. I tapped it with one of mine, that we returned to our corners, both exhausted beyond words, waiting for the judge's decision. As we stood in the center of the ring, waiting for the scorecard announcement, Dax leaned over and whispered something that caught me completely off guard. No matter what happens, he said, this is just the beginning. Ladies, gentlemen, and beings of all classifications, the announcer's voice boomed through the grandest arena. After 10 rounds of championship boxing, we go to the judges' scorecards. The crowd's roar was deafening as I stood there, swaying slightly, all 6 of my eyes struggling to focus on a single point. My 4 arms hung heavily at my sides, each one feeling like it had been used to stop a meteor shower. Across from me, Dax Rogers somehow managed to look simultaneously exhausted and alert, a paradox of human resilience that I was beginning to find intensely irritating. Judge Zorblax scores the bout 95-94. Rogers. A section of human supporters erupted in cheers while my stomach dropped through the canvas. One judge against me already. Judge Krell scores the bout 96-93. Kraven. My supporters roared back, and I felt a surge of relief. One judge for me, one for him. It all came down to the final scorecard. A scenario so dramatically perfect that I half suspected Commissioner Xylax had paid off the judges just for the ratings boost. And Judge Harmonix scores the bout. The pause seemed to stretch into infinity. I could hear my 4 hearts pounding in rhythmic disharmony. Somewhere in the crowd, a Jovian spectator actually fainted from the tension, their gelatinous body making a distinctive splat against the arena floor. 95-95. This championship bout is declared a draw. The arena exploded with a mixture of cheers, boos, and the distinctive high-pitched wailing of confused Martian betting syndicates. A draw. A draw. After all that, neither of us had won. I turned to look at Dax, expecting to see disappointment mirroring my own. Instead, the human was smiling. Actually smiling, like this outcome somehow pleased him. What are you so happy about? I growled as referee Klong raised both our hands in the air. Neither of us won. But neither of us lost, Dax replied, his voice carrying a strange note of satisfaction. Which means, Commissioner Xylax's amplified voice cut through the chaos, his gelatinous form wobbling with excitement on the portable hovering platform he used for announcements, that for the first time in Galactic Boxing Federation history, we will have a rematch. The crowd went absolutely ballistic. I swear I saw at least 3 different species spontaneously evolve just to have more appendages to cheer with. 90 days from tonight, Xylax continued, his translucent body pulsing with what I could only assume was financial ecstasy. These 2 warriors will meet again to determine, once and for all, who is the greatest fighter in the galaxy. I glared at Dax. You knew this would happen. He shrugged, wincing slightly from what I hoped was excruciating pain in his shoulders. Just a hunch. The betting pools for a rematch will be astronomical. Congratulations, I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm heavier than a neutron star. You have just guaranteed yourself another beating. From where I'm standing, Dax replied, gesturing to my battered purple face. It looks like we both took a beating. Next time will be different. Oh, I can promise you that. I muttered as we were separated by our respective teams. Blip rushed to my side, a strange mixture of relief and frustration painted across his tiny green face. A draw. Can you believe it? A draw. Yes, I heard the announcement too. I snapped, letting my medical team start removing my gloves. I've got 6 years, remember? This is actually perfect, Blip continued, ignoring my irritation with practiced ease. We have 90 days to prepare, to study him, to develop a strategy that doesn't involve you eating punches like they are complimentary protein snacks at a spaceport lounge. I winced as one of the medics sprayed regenerative foam on a particularly nasty cut above my third eye. Did you see how he reacted? Like this was his plan all along. Blip's antenna twitched thoughtfully. Humans are strange that way. They're always thinking 3 steps ahead, or pretending to. I grumbled, allowing myself to be helped down the ring steps. The post-fight medical examination was brutal, not physically, but emotionally. Dr. Zinth, the Federation's chief medical officer, made disapproving clicks with her mandibles as she examined my injuries. 3 cracked ribs, hairline fracture in your lower right radius, significant orbital swelling around eyes 2, 4, and 5. She listed, her 8 arachnid legs clicking against the examination table as she moved around me. For someone with twice the number of limbs, you certainly managed to absorb an impressive amount of damage from a being with only 2 arms. Thank you for that assessment, Doctor, I replied dryly. Perhaps you'd like to publish your findings in the Journal of Obvious Observations? She ignored my comment, shining a painfully bright light into each of my 6 eyes. Neurological function seems intact, though your attitude suggests the human may have knocked loose what little remains of your charm. Before I could respond with what would have certainly been a devastatingly witty comeback, Commissioner Xylax oozed into the medical bay, his translucent body now contained in what appeared to be an even more expensive suit than before. Champion Kraven, he bubbled enthusiastically. What a performance. The viewership numbers were off the charts. 17 systems. 17. We broke every broadcasting record in the Federation's history. Glad my pain could be so profitable for you, I muttered. The rematch will be even bigger, Xylax continued, either missing or deliberately ignoring my sarcasm. We are moving it to the Ultradome on Saturn's rings. Capacity for 100,000 spectators. Holographic projections for billions more. This will be the sporting event of the millennium. I looked at Blip, who seemed to be calculating potential bonus percentages in his head. What about my recovery? 90 days isn't a lot of time. Dr. Zinth clicked her mandibles again. With aggressive regeneration therapy and proper rest, you should be physically capable of competing in the time frame. Whether you'll be mentally prepared to develop a strategy that doesn't involve using your face as a punching target is outside my professional expertise. Thanks for the vote of confidence, I groaned, sliding off the examination table. My legs wobbled slightly, but I refused to show weakness in front of Xylax. I will be ready. After being cleared to leave, I shuffled back to my private quarters in the athlete's village, Blip chattering incessantly about potential training regimens and tactical adjustments. By the time we reached my door, I was fantasizing about using all 4 arms to tie him in a knot and stuff him in a maintenance drone's waste disposal unit. Enough, I finally said, holding up one hand while using another to press my palm against the biometric scanner. I need sleep and silence, preferably in that exact order. Blip nodded, his enthusiasm finally dampened by my tone. Rest well, champion. Tomorrow, we begin planning. The door slid open, and I stepped inside, eager for the sweet embrace of my customized recuperation chamber, only to find Dax Rogers sitting comfortably on MY couch, drinking what appeared to be MY premium Neptunian mineral water. What the? I sputtered, too shocked to even complete the expletive. How did you get in here? Where's security? Dax calmly set down the water bottle. He had changed out of his fighting gear into casual human clothing, some sort of synthetic fabric that hung loosely on his frame, disguising the compact power I'd felt firsthand in the ring. Your security is fine, he said, I told them I had special permission from Commissioner Xylax. And they believed you. Humans have a reputation for honesty. He replied with a straight face. I stared at him for a full 5 seconds before bursting into laughter, which immediately made my ribs scream in protest. That's the funniest thing I have heard all day. Humans and honesty. Wait till I tell that one at the Intergalactic Comedy Federation. Dax shrugged, his face betraying nothing. Believe what you want. I'm here because we need to talk. Privately. Something in his tone made me pause. I glanced back at Blip, who was hovering in the doorway, his antenna practically vibrating with curiosity. Give us the room, I said. But Blip started to protest. Now, I insisted. Wait outside. And if anyone asks, especially Xylax or his gelatinous minions, you haven't seen the human since the ring. Blip looked like he wanted to argue, but thought better of it. The door slid shut behind him, leaving me alone with the human who, just hours earlier, had been trying to separate my consciousness from my body with his fists. You have exactly 60 seconds to explain why I shouldn't use all 4 arms to throw you out the nearest airlock, I said, lowering myself gingerly into the chair opposite him. Because I let you survive tonight, Dax replied calmly. If he was trying to provoke me, it worked spectacularly. I lunged forward, ignoring the screaming pain in my ribs, grabbing him by the collar with my upper right hand. You what? To his credit, the human didn't flinch. I could have ended the fight in the 8th round. Your guard drops on the right side when you throw consecutive left hooks. I noticed it in the 4th round, but decided against exploiting it. I released him, more out of confusion than restraint. That's absurd. Why would you hold back in a championship fight? Because winning wasn't my objective, he said, straightening his clothing. At least, not my only objective. You're talking in riddles, human, I growled. My patience, like my pain tolerance, has its limits. Dax leaned forward, his expression suddenly intense. What do you know about the Syndicate? The question caught me off guard. The Syndicate was the shadowy organization rumored to control the Galactic Boxing Federation from behind the scenes, the subject of conspiracy theories and late-night holographic documentaries, not serious conversation. They are a myth, I scoffed. A boogeyman invented by fighters looking to explain why their careers tanked. They are as real as the bruises on your face, Dax countered, and they have been manipulating outcomes for decades, including yours. I laughed, though it came out as more of a pained wheeze. Let me guess, they've been drugging my opponents? Paying off judges? Making sure the great Zox Kraven stays on top? The opposite, actually, Dax said. They have been limiting you. Your last 7 opponents? All carefully selected because they had specific weaknesses that matched your style. Your training regimens? Designed to enhance your natural abilities while leaving strategic gaps that could be exploited when the time was right. That's ridiculous, I said, but a cold feeling was spreading through my gut. Why would they do that? To set up the perfect fall, Dax explained. Tonight was supposed to be your spectacular defeat. The odds against me were astronomical. The perfect opportunity for the Syndicate to cash in. My job was to knock you out, preferably in dramatic fashion, while they collected on billions in betting revenues. I stared at him, my 6 eyes blinking in asynchronous confusion. If what you were saying is true, and that's a planet-sized then why didn't you do it? Why not follow their plan? Because I don't work for them, Dax said simply. I'm part of a group that's been tracking the Syndicate's operations across multiple sports and species competitions. Boxing is just their most profitable venture. My head was spinning, and not just from the concussion I'd likely suffered. So, the draw was my way of buying us time. Dax finished. They didn't want a rematch. They wanted a definitive ending to your championship reign tonight. Us, I repeated. There is no us, human. There's you with your conspiracy theories, and me with my championship belt that I'm keeping. Thank you very much. Dax reached into his pocket and pulled out a small holographic projector. With a flick of his wrist, he activated it, filling the space between us with floating images and data streams. Your trainer, Blip, he said, pointing to a personnel file that materialized in the air. Been with you for what? 5 years. Ever wonder why your previous trainer suddenly retired after getting you to championship level? He was old, I protested weakly. Wanted to spend more time with his spawn cluster. He was threatened. Dax corrected, swiping to display financial records. And Blip was installed as his replacement. Look at these transfers, small enough to avoid detection. regular enough to constitute a pattern. He's been reporting your weaknesses, your training progress, everything. I felt sick. Blip had been like family to me. Annoying, nagging family, but family nonetheless. This could be fabricated. It could be Dax agreed, but it isn't. He swiped again, bringing up security footage from what appeared to be the training facility I'd used last month. There was Blip, speaking in hushed tones with a figure I recognized immediately. Vordomina, manager of 3 fighters I defeated in title defenses. That doesn't prove anything, I said, but my conviction was weakening. They could be discussing anything. Computer, enhance audio, Dax commanded. The hologram shimmered, and suddenly Blip's voice filled the room. Vulnerable when he throws combinations with his upper arms. Leaves his midsection exposed. The human should target that weakness in rounds 6 through 8, when Zox typically gets overconfident. I felt like I'd been punched all over again. The specific weakness Dax had mentioned earlier, the one he claimed not to have fully exploited, was exactly what Blip was revealing in this recording. Why are you showing me this? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Because they're going to try again, Dax said, shutting off the hologram. The rematch isn't just a second chance for me or you. It's a second chance for them. They have invested too much to let their plan fail. But this time, they will be more direct. They might try to drug you, sabotage your training, or worse. Why should I trust you? I demanded, though the evidence was becoming difficult to ignore. For all I know, this is some elaborate human psychological warfare. Dax smiled thinly. You don't have to trust me. Trust the evidence. And consider this. If I wanted to defeat you according to their plan, I could have. I chose not to. I sat back, my mind racing faster than a Mercurian quantum sprinter. If what Dax was saying was true, my entire career had been manipulated. Every victory, every defense of my title. All stepping stones to set up an eventual dramatic fall. What do you propose? I finally asked. We give them what they want, Dax said. On the surface, at least. You fire Blip, cite irreconcilable differences after the draw, whatever. Find a new trainer they don't control. I will do the same, distancing myself from certain elements in my camp. We both train as if we were preparing for the fight of our lives. We are, I pointed out. Exactly. But what they don't know is that we will be sharing information, training together in secret. And when the night of the rematch comes, we expose them. I finished, beginning to see the elegance of the plan. In the most public, undeniable way possible, Dax confirmed. 100,000 spectators in person, billions watching throughout the galaxy. We give them a fight they will never forget, but not the outcome they have bet on. It was crazy, absolutely insane. Partnering with a human, with my opponent, to take down a shadowy criminal organization that may or may not have been manipulating my entire career. And yet, something about it felt right. Maybe it was the concussion talking, or maybe it was the first genuine shot at agency I'd had in years. I will need to see more proof, I said cautiously. Records, communications, anything you have on Blip and his connections. You will have it, Dax promised. All I ask is that you keep this conversation between us. Trust no one in your camp until we have verified they are clean. I nodded slowly. In the rematch? What happens in the ring? Dax stood, extending his hand, a human gesture of agreement I'd seen, but never participated in. We fight. For real. No holding back. May the best being win. I looked at his offered hand, then reached out with my lower right arm to shake it. And if these Syndicate people realize what we are doing, then we will have bigger problems than determining who's the better boxer, Dax said grimly. After he left, I sat alone in my quarters for a long time, replaying the conversation in my mind. Part of me wanted to dismiss it all as human manipulation, a psychological ploy to throw me off balance before the rematch. But those financial records, the security footage, Blip's voice revealing my weaknesses. I activated my private communication terminal, encoding the channel with my personal quantum signature. One of the few security measures I was now relatively confident hadn't been compromised. Computer, connect me to Grok Thunder Fist. I instructed. Grok, the previous alien champion who had fallen to a human. The one whose defeat had haunted me before my own fight. If anyone could corroborate Dax's claims, it would be him. The terminal hummed as it established the connection, finally revealing the scarred, battle-worn face of Grok Thunderfist. Once the most feared fighter in 3 systems, now living in self-imposed exile on a remote moon of Jupiter. Kraven, He grunted in surprise. Didn't expect to hear from you, especially after tonight. You watched the fight? I asked. Everyone watched the fight, he rumbled. Draw, huh? Better than what happened to me. Took a deep breath. Grok, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest. Before your fight with Jackson Williams, did anything strange happen? With your trainer, your preparation, anything? Grok's expression darkened, his rocky features hardening even further. Why are you asking? Because I think. I hesitated, still hardly believing what I was about to say. I think someone may have intentionally set us both up to lose. There was a long silence. Finally, Grok spoke, his voice lower than before. Check your nutrition supplements. 2 days before my fight, they switched brands. Said it was a sponsorship deal. After the knockout, I had them tested. Found subtle compounds that slow neural response time by milliseconds. Not enough to detect in standard scans, but enough to make a difference at championship level. My blood ran cold. Who was behind it? Never could prove anything, Grok said. But my money's on the same people who suddenly became very, very rich when I lost. He leaned closer to the screen. Be careful, Kraven. If you're asking these questions, you are already in danger. The communication ended, leaving me with more questions than answers, but one certainty. Dax Rogers was telling the truth. The next 90 days would determine not just the fate of the Galactic Boxing Championship, but possibly my very survival. That I looked at my reflection in the window, taking in the battered purple face and 6 swollen eyes staring back at me. For the first time in my fighting career, the opponent across the ring wasn't my enemy. The real fight was against those who had been pulling the strings all along. Round 2, I muttered to myself, clenching all 4 fists simultaneously. Let's make it count. In the distance, through the reinforced glass, Saturn's rings glittered against the void of space. A natural arena that would soon host the most important battle of my life. Not just for a belt, but for the truth. The final ring awaited. And this time, I'd be ready, not just as a champion, but as something else entirely, a revolutionary. Syndicate had no idea what was coming for them. 4 fists, 2 hands, and one shared mission. Justice. Game on.